Hey, it's Tim, Fargo, and today I want to talk a little bit about workplace motivation. And I think far too often, workplace motivation is thought about like inspirational posters on the walls, or giving some kind of heartwarming speech to a group of employees, whatever. And I'm not saying, to be honest, some of that stuff does have a place in the workplace, but what's much more important are the little day-to-day things. And so what do I mean by that? I think one thing super important is just having respect for the people that work in your company. And this manifests itself in a few ways. I mean, one is not asking people to do things that are kind of not their job. And you might think, well, shouldn't I be able to expect them to like step up? Well, in certain instances, but I see people all the time take someone who's a true professional and ask them to go make a cup of coffee. I mean, that's just an ego move. You want to treat somebody like a servant. That's not what they're there for. And if you treat people like that, it's going to backfire on you. So that's kind of a respect issue. Another respect issue is constantly putting up these kind of unrealistic deadlines and making people work a lot of extra hours. Now that can be an approach that you take at times where you genuinely have an unforeseen emergency or something comes up and you have a short-term need. I think you can do that in a way that workers will respect it. But far too often, people keep going to the well, and because they got the workers to stay a little extra once, then they start like abusing the privilege, right? You have to recognize that the people working in your company or working in your department, they have lives, they have families, they have friends, they have hobbies, they have things they want to do. And the more you respect them, the more likely they are to respect you and give you the quality of work that you're looking for. All right? And then another thing that I think is really important and often overlooked is giving people the tools they need to do their job. And that might sound so self-evident, but I see it so often where people set up policies and procedures and things that kind of handcuff a worker from being able to do their job. And I can give you for instance, of something I dealt with as a customer. British Airways had made a mistake on refunding some miles to my account. I'd canceled a reservation. And, God bless the people that I was interacting with, but I couldn't find a single person who could actually take action. I mean, this thing was layered through so many departments, and we're talking about fixing a mistake. I wasn't asking them to give me something. I was asking them to give me back something that they had taken from me in error. And it was pretty obvious. I mean, you could just look at a statement and see what had happened. And my point here is that within that organization, those workers must be super frustrated because, I was pretty chilled about it, but I can imagine that a lot of people get super frustrated and then they take it out on those people. Now, whose fault is it really? It's not the workers' fault. It's management's fault because management has put them in a position to do something but not giving them the authority and the ability to actually correct the issue that the customer is kind of wanting to be addressed. So if you're a manager, make sure that if you put someone in kind of the line of fire, that they have the tools they need to be able to respond and satisfy the people that are coming into contact with them. There may be a few exceptions, but when something is kind of a standard process that they need to get done, you need to make sure that they're able to do that and they don't have to go seeking permission every time they need to make the smallest of decisions. That's one great example. And another example could just be having technology that works. I've seen that in offices where, people want to do something, but I'd help you, but the printer's broke. Really? You run an enterprise, but you're not willing to, spend the $200 or whatever it is to get a new printer. These are the kind of things though, like sometimes I think a manager might think that's not, why is that so important? It's important because people are trying to do their job. And they want to do their job. Honestly, I really believe that. If you've hired with any degree of thoughtfulness, you should have an employee that wants to do their job. Then it's up to you to make sure they have the tools to do it. All right? So you have the respect and then you have the tools. And I think if you just give people those two things, you can move mountains. by getting things done. And the third thing, which I touched on previously, and I think this is actually probably the most important one of the three, because you can have the kind of respect for the worker and you can provide them with the tools, but the most important thing you do is when you hire someone. And I think it's super tempting when you're a manager to want to bring someone in to fix your problem. It's like, oh, we need a particular kind of staff member, so let's go out and hire someone to do that. But they do a few things wrong. One, they rush and they don't really test the person's technical competence in whatever it is they're going to do. Big mistake. You really need to know, are they capable of doing this job, or are they kind of fluffing their qualifications? Because anyhow, you're going to find out eventually, so you're better off to find out before you hire them. Another piece, and I think is just so important. Let the person interview with the department they're going to work in. Let them talk to coworkers. You might think, well, these people are busy. It doesn't have to be long, but you do need to see if these people are going to get along. If for whatever reason there's a potential kind of like cat fight in the midst because this person doesn't gel with the existing department, then you can't hire them. It doesn't matter how good they are. If you bring someone in from the outside that ends up being an antagonistic force within the department, you will not only have screwed up the hire on that person, you may end up needing to hire additional people because you got it so wrong. And it's such a simple thing, to just take aside a couple staff members, and people really love being involved in the process. At Omega, my old company, we used to do that all the time, get staff people involved in the actual interview process for this very reason, to make sure that the person we were hiring would integrate. So if you do those three things, right, if you make sure that you show person respect, you give them the tools they need, and most importantly, hire the right person from the beginning. Take the approach to make sure that you got the right person. And just one more thing on that, because I just can't overemphasize it enough. Don't worry about how long it takes to get people through the hiring process, because incorrectly hiring, forget about all the long-term costs, etc. It's just disruptive. It's disruptive. It's disruptive for you as a manager. It's disruptive for the other people working there, because very often they've taken over the workload from somebody who may have left, and then this new person comes in, and if they don't work out, then they either have to pick up that workload again, or very often, because the person is not competent, they end up having to rework all the stuff that they were supposed to have done. So all of this stuff ends up being just a nightmare. So please, on that third one, on hiring, just refine the process until it's just impossible for you to get it wrong. Okay? So that's my kind of three-legged stool for workplace motivation. And it might sound crazy, like hiring, how's that like motivation? But if you hire the wrong person, you're not going to be able to get them to do anything anyway, all right? Because you'll be trying to push someone to do something that they're not suited for. Okay? That's the three-legged stool, as I said, on workplace motivation. If you have any questions or comments, please type them in down below. And as always, please subscribe. And that's it. Have an awesome day. We'll see you.